Myra sat on the cold floor of a small metallic chamber. The walls around her were silver gray and smooth, with no windows, only a single door that hummed faintly with energy. The light in the room came from a strip above her head, casting a pale glow that made everything feel lifeless. The air was heavy, carrying the faint smell of metal and oil. She pulled her knees close to her chest and tried to stay calm. For days, maybe weeks, she had been kept here. She had lost track of time because there was no sunrise or sunset, no change of light, nothing to mark the hours. The only moments that reminded her of time passing were when guards came. They wore dark armor and their voices were harsh. They spoke in the language of the Empire, a tongue she could understand but hated to hear. Each time they entered, Myra's heart would beat faster, because she never knew what news they would bring. Her people had once lived free on green worlds under bright skies. Myra remembered running across open fields when she was younger, her feet brushing soft grass, her friends laughing around her. She remembered her mother's gentle songs at night and the quiet wisdom of her father. Those memories felt like treasures now, small sparks of light she kept safe inside her mind. Because here in the chamber, she had nothing else. The Empire had taken her home. Their ships had filled the skies, and their soldiers had marched through the villages with weapons glowing in their hands. They told her people they were weak, that they would now serve the Empire. Anyone who resisted was silenced. Myra had been one of many captured and loaded into transports, torn away from her family and community. Now she was alone. She had seen no one else from her people since the day she was locked inside this chamber. The guards told her she was being kept for processing and that soon her future would be decided. Their words chilled her. She understood what it meant. She would not be free again unless something impossible happened. Still, inside her heart, Myra refused to let hope die. Even in fear, even in loneliness, she told herself that the Empire could not crush every spark of resistance. Somewhere out there, someone would stand against them. She whispered silent prayers to the stars, believing they carried the strength of her ancestors. She rose slowly from the floor and walked across the small space. Her bare feet touched the cool metal, and her reflection shone faintly on the polished surface of the wall. She placed her hand against it, imagining for a moment that she could push through and escape. But the wall was unyielding, as it had always been. She sighed and returned to the corner, lowering herself to the ground once more. The door suddenly hissed, and Myra froze. Her body tensed. The strip of energy around the edges of the door flickered, then the panel slid open. A guard stepped inside. His armor gleamed black, and his helmet covered his face. He carried a device on his belt that pulsed with red light. He spoke in the Empire's tongue, his voice sharp and final. "Prepare yourself. Soon you will be transferred." Myra's heart pounded. Transferred. The word echoed inside her. She wanted to ask what it meant, but she already knew. She had overheard whispers before, guards talking when they thought she was asleep. Others like her had been taken away, and none had returned. The guard gave no further explanation. He turned and left, the door sealing shut behind him. The chamber was silent again, but the silence was worse now. Myra sat still, her mind racing. Her time was running short. Whatever was coming, it would arrive soon. She closed her eyes and tried to slow her breathing. Fear wanted to take hold, but she fought it. She thought of her mother's songs again, the words that spoke of strength, of standing tall even when shadows grew long. Myra repeated the lines in her head, clinging to them as if they were armor. A faint vibration moved through the chamber floor, telling her the transport ship was in motion. She wondered where they were going. A new station, another ship, maybe even deeper into Empire space. She knew little of the galaxy beyond her home, but she had heard stories of endless worlds under Empire control. To them, her people were nothing more than resources. To Myra, every person taken from her home was a soul, a life, a story now broken. She pressed her forehead against her knees. For a moment, despair rose, but she did not let it drown her. She reminded herself that as long as she was alive, even in a prison, there was still a chance. Small as it might be, a chance was more than nothing. Her mind drifted toward questions she had asked herself many times. Were there others in the galaxy who opposed the Empire? Did anyone have the courage to fight them? Her people had tried, but they were few and without the weapons or ships needed. If there were others, could they know of her people's suffering? Could they care? As these thoughts circled, Myra leaned her head back against the wall and whispered softly, "Please, let there be someone out there." Her voice was barely more than breath, but it carried her hope. The hum of the lights above continued, steady and indifferent. The chamber gave no answer. Yet inside Myra's heart, a flame still burned. She did not know that far beyond the metal walls, in the darkness of space, a human soldier named Aaron was already closer than she could imagine. He did not know her name, he did not know her face, but he would soon hear the signal that would lead him to her. And in that moment, the future she feared would begin to change. Aaron sat inside the cockpit of a small patrol craft, his eyes fixed on the endless stretch of stars outside. The control panel before him glowed with lines of data, showing signals and faint readings from the region around him. His ship moved silently along the edge of Empire space, a place where human ships rarely traveled. Aaron was part of a small human strike team, sent to gather information and study enemy movements. He had been in space for many years, serving as a soldier for the human defense fleet. Life among the stars had hardened him, but it had also given him clarity. He knew the Empire well. He knew they were ruthless and cared nothing for those they conquered. Reports of suffering reached human worlds often, but most of the time, the fleet could do little. The Empire was vast, and humans were not ready for a full war. Still, Aaron carried a quiet promise within himself. If he ever saw someone in need, he would not look away. As he scanned the readings, one signal caught his attention. It was faint, almost hidden, but it pulsed in a way that suggested life signs. Aaron leaned closer, narrowing his eyes. The source was coming from a prison transport drifting in a dark corridor of space. His orders from command were clear: observe, record, avoid detection. But Aaron's instincts pulled him in another direction. If there were prisoners inside that transport, their future was certain to be grim. He pressed a button on his console, opening a channel to his squad. "I'm picking up life readings from a transport," he said. His voice was steady, but firm. The reply came quickly. "Stay on task, Aaron. We are not here for rescue missions." Aaron clenched his jaw. He respected his team, but he could not ignore what he had found. His eyes returned to the signal, and he imagined those life signs belonged to someone waiting, someone hoping. He thought of the many times he had seen survivors after Empire raids, people broken and afraid. He remembered the look in their eyes when they realized no one had come for them in time. Aaron could not bear to let that happen again. "I understand the orders," he replied, "but I am going to check this out." "I'll be careful." There was silence on the channel. Aaron knew they disagreed, but he also knew none of them could stop him now. He switched the channel off and guided his craft closer to the transport. The massive ship floated like a shadow in space, its surface covered with glowing panels of Empire design. It moved slowly, engines humming faintly, unaware of the small human vessel tracking its path. Aaron kept his distance, circling around until he found a weak point. His scanners showed a maintenance bay near the rear of the transport. Empire ships were advanced, but Aaron knew their patterns. He had studied them for years, learned their flaws, and memorized the places where a skilled soldier could slip inside. He activated the stealth system of his craft. Lights dimmed, engines shifted to a quieter pulse. Aaron took a deep breath, his heart steady. He knew this was dangerous. If he was caught, he would face the Empire alone. But he also knew he could not turn away. Docking his small ship against the transport's hull, Aaron pulled on his armor. It was lighter than Empire gear, built for speed and strength. The helmet sealed around his head, and his visor flickered with data. Oxygen levels, weapon status, navigation lines. Everything was ready. He gripped his rifle, but he kept it low. He did not want to fight unless he had to. The hatch of his ship opened, and he stepped into the maintenance bay of the transport. The air was colder here, the lights dim. Pipes lined the walls, carrying energy through the massive vessel. Aaron moved carefully, each step quiet, his senses alert. He had been in enemy ships before, and he knew how quickly things could go wrong. His visor guided him through the corridors, tracing the signal he had found earlier. It was weak, but it was steady. Someone was alive, locked deep within the transport. Aaron followed the trail, passing through empty halls where the hum of machinery echoed softly. As he moved, he thought about who he might find. A soldier like himself? A traitor captured at the edge of Empire space? Or maybe someone from one of the many worlds the Empire had crushed under its rule. Whoever it was, they did not deserve to vanish into Empire hands without hope. The signal grew stronger. Aaron tightened his grip on the rifle, his steps faster now. Ahead, he saw a sealed chamber, guarded by an energy door that glowed faint blue. He crouched low, studying it. His visor confirmed what he suspected. Inside that chamber, a single life form was present. Aaron's heart beat faster. He could picture the person inside, waiting, maybe thinking no one would ever come. He reached for his tool pack, pulling out a small device designed to cut through energy locks. Working quickly, he attached it to the door. The hum of the barrier flickered, then faded. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Aaron raised his rifle, ready for danger, but what he saw instead stopped him. Inside, a young woman sat in the corner. She was not human. Her skin held a faint silver tone, her eyes deep and bright with fear. She looked up at him, uncertain, her body tense as if she expected another captor. Aaron lowered his weapon at once. He lifted his free hand slowly, palm open, showing he meant no harm. Through the helmet speaker, his voice was calm. "I am not your enemy. I am here to help." The woman's eyes searched his faceplate, though she could not see him clearly through the glass. She did not move at first, unsure whether to believe him. Aaron understood her fear. She had been trapped, powerless, and suddenly a stranger in armor had appeared. He took another step closer, lowering his rifle to the ground. "You are not alone anymore," he said softly. For a moment, silence filled the chamber. Then, slowly, the woman's shoulders eased. She whispered a single word, her voice quiet but filled with hope. "Help." Aaron nodded firmly. Yes. I will get you out. At that moment, Aaron knew his choice had been the right one. Orders and risks no longer mattered. What mattered was the life before him, a life that needed saving. And so the journey of escape began. The chamber was silent except for the faint hum of the transport's engines. Aaron stood at the doorway, his rifle lowered at his side, while the young woman remained seated in the corner. Her wide eyes stayed fixed on him, filled with fear but also curiosity. She had never seen a human before. To her, he was just another armored figure, another soldier stepping into her prison. Aaron understood the weight of her fear. His voice came through the helmet speaker again, steady and calm. My name is Aaron. I am human. I am not with the Empire. I am here to take you away from this place. The woman did not reply at once. She had been told many lies since her capture. Guards often promised things only to crush her hope later. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came. She hugged her knees tighter, as if the gesture might protect her from betrayal. Aaron slowly removed his helmet. The seals clicked open, and he lifted it away, letting his face show in the pale chamber light. His short dark hair was damp from the helmet, and his eyes were sharp but kind. He wanted her to see the truth in him, not just armor and weapons. The woman's eyes softened slightly. He looked different from the Empire soldiers she had seen. His face carried no cruelty, only determination. Aaron lowered himself to one knee, making sure he did not stand tall over her. He spoke again, his voice no longer muffled. I will not harm you. Tell me your name. She hesitated, then answered softly. Myra. Aaron nodded. Myra. That is a good name. We do not have much time. The guards will notice the door soon. I can get you out, but you must trust me. Her heart beat fast. Trust was dangerous, but something in his voice reached her. It carried a strength she had not heard in many days. She studied him carefully. He was alone, with no other soldiers behind him. If he were an enemy, why would he come alone? Why would he show his face? Slowly, Myra pushed herself up from the floor. Aaron rose as well, offering his hand. She looked at it for a moment before placing her smaller hand into his. His grip was firm but gentle, pulling her to her feet. Her legs trembled from days of weakness, but she stood with his support. Aaron glanced at the corridor outside. The energy lock was down, but it would not stay unnoticed for long. He retrieved his helmet, sliding it back on. Stay close to me, he said. I will protect you. They moved into the hallway together. The lights above flickered as the ship's systems shifted, and the sound of distant footsteps echoed faintly. Myra's breath caught in her throat. Every sound felt like a threat. Aaron kept his rifle ready, his body positioned between her and the open corridor. As they advanced, Myra whispered, "Why are you helping me?" Aaron did not look back, but his voice was firm. Because no one deserves to be taken like this. Because I can. Her chest tightened. His answer was simple, but it carried weight. In her world, power was used to control. Yet here was someone using strength to protect a stranger. She followed him with growing trust. They passed through a series of dim corridors, pipes running along the walls, steam hissing softly from vents. Aaron's visor guided them, showing a path toward the docking bay where he had entered. He moved with practiced precision, each step measured, each turn checked before crossing. Myra noticed how focused he was, his eyes scanning constantly. They paused at a corner as the sound of voices approached. Two Empire guards walked by, their armor shining dark under the lights. Myra pressed close to the wall, her heart racing. Aaron raised a hand, signaling her to stay still. The guards passed without noticing, their footsteps fading into the distance. Myra released the breath she had been holding. Aaron looked back at her. Even through the visor, she could sense his calm. "You are safe," he said. "We keep moving." She nodded, trying to steady her breathing. Her body was weak, but she forced herself onward. Each step felt like defiance against the empire that had tried to break her. As they continued, Myra spoke again, her voice low. "Where will you take me?" "To my ship," Aaron replied. "From there, I can bring you to human space. You will not be a prisoner again." The thought seemed impossible. Freedom felt distant, almost like a dream. But Aaron's certainty gave it shape. For the first time in many days, Myra felt a spark of true hope. Suddenly, the sound of an alarm echoed through the corridors. Red lights flashed along the ceiling, and a voice in the Empire's tongue shouted commands. Myra flinched, fear flooding her again. Aaron cursed under his breath. "They know." He quickened his pace, guiding her forward. The halls filled with the pounding of boots as guards began to search. Aaron tightened his grip on his rifle. His body moved with the speed of someone trained for battle, but his attention never left Myra. He kept her close, shielding her from open angles where enemies might appear. They turned down another corridor, only to face two guards blocking the path. The soldiers raised their weapons, shouting in their harsh language. Aaron reacted instantly. He pulled Myra behind him and fired his rifle. The blast lit the hallway, striking the first guard and sending him crashing back. The second raised his weapon, but Aaron moved fast, dodging to the side and firing again. The guard fell, armor clattering against the floor. The smell of burned metal filled the air. Myra clung to Aaron's arm, her eyes wide. She had never seen anyone fight the Empire and win so quickly. Aaron touched her shoulder gently. "It is all right. We keep moving." They stepped over the fallen guards and pressed on. Myra's legs shook, but she kept going. Every step now carried a strange new feeling. For so long, she had been powerless, but beside this human soldier, she felt the chains of fear beginning to crack. As they neared the docking bay, Aaron slowed. He signaled Myra to wait as he scanned the next corridor. The bay was heavily guarded. Dozens of soldiers stood between them and escape. Aaron's mind raced. Fighting them all would be impossible. He would need to find another way. He looked back at Myra. She was exhausted but determined. Her eyes met his, and for a moment they shared silent understanding. They would not give up. Aaron whispered through his helmet speaker. "Stay behind me. No matter what happens, I will get you out of here." Myra nodded, her trust in him now stronger than her fear. Together, they prepared to face whatever waited in the shadows of the Empire's ship. The docking bay stretched wide before them, filled with the glow of red warning lights. Rows of Empire soldiers stood near the exits, their dark armor shining under the lamps. Heavy crates and machines lined the walls, while ships rested on landing pads across the chamber floor. Myra's heart sank at the sight. The path to freedom looked impossible. Aaron studied the bay quickly, his visor marking every guard, every turret, and every ship. His mind raced. A direct fight would mean certain capture. The Empire had numbers and heavy weapons. He had only one rifle, limited energy cells, and Myra to protect. He breathed deeply, forcing calm into his body. Fear could not control him now. Strategy had to. He turned to Myra, his voice firm but steady. We cannot run straight through. We need a path they do not expect. Do you know of any hidden passages? Myra searched her memory. She remembered overhearing guards days ago, speaking carelessly outside her chamber. They had mentioned a supply route used by crews to move fuel and tools without crossing the main bay. She closed her eyes, picturing the words. There is a service corridor, she whispered. Near the eastern wall. It connects to the landing area. Aaron nodded sharply. That is our way. They crouched low and moved along the shadows of the corridor. Aaron kept his rifle ready, his eyes scanning every corner. Myra stayed close behind, her heart racing with each step. The sound of boots and shouted orders filled the chamber. The alarm still blared, and soldiers rushed to secure exits. None of them had noticed the two figures slipping along the darker side of the wall. As they neared the eastern side, Aaron spotted the service hatch Myra had described. It was small, almost hidden behind a stack of crates. A red panel glowed faintly beside it, locked with an Empire code. Aaron pulled a tool from his belt and knelt before the panel. His hands moved quickly, sparks flashing as he bypassed the circuits. Myra stood guard, her eyes darting to the soldiers spread across the bay. The panel flickered, then turned green. The hatch slid open with a soft hiss. Aaron gestured for Myra to move inside first. She slipped through, and he followed, sealing the hatch behind them. The narrow corridor stretched ahead, dimly lit and filled with pipes carrying energy through the ship. The air smelled of fuel and oil. Myra breathed with relief. You knew how to open it so fast. Aaron allowed a brief smile beneath his helmet. Years of practice. They pressed forward through the service passage. The hum of machines vibrated under their feet. The path was tight, but it kept them hidden from the main guards. Aaron's visor map guided him, tracing the way toward the docking pads. Suddenly, the passage shook with a loud blast. The Empire had detected their escape route. Alarms grew louder, and the sound of metal footsteps echoed behind them. Aaron turned, seeing lights approaching from the far end. They are coming. Hurry. They ran through the narrow corridor, Myra struggling to keep pace with Aaron's longer strides. Her legs ached, but she pushed herself, knowing every second counted. The footsteps of the guards grew closer. At last, the passage ended in a heavy door leading to the landing area. Aaron quickly set his tool against the lock. Sparks flew again as he forced the system open. Myra pressed against the wall, her breath shallow, as shouts rang behind them. The door slid open just as enemy soldiers rounded the corner. Aaron pulled Myra through, firing a blast into the control panel. The door sealed shut, locking the soldiers inside. Their pounding fists and weapons struck against the metal, but for the moment, it held. They emerged into a smaller bay where several small crafts rested. Unlike the main chamber, only a few workers were present here. The workers froze in shock at the sight of Aaron and Myra. Before they could raise alarms, Aaron fired warning shots into the air. The workers scattered, fleeing the bay in panic. Aaron guided Myra toward the nearest craft. It was sleek, built for short-range travel. This will do, he said. They climbed aboard, the ship's controls lighting up as Aaron activated them. Myra slid into the co-pilot seat, her hands trembling as she touched the console. Aaron's fingers moved across the controls with practiced speed, bringing the engines to life. The hum grew into a roar as power surged through the ship. But before they could launch, the main bay doors opened. Empire soldiers poured into the smaller chamber, weapons raised. Blasts of energy streaked across the room, striking the walls and floor. Myra ducked low, covering her head. Aaron raised his rifle, firing back with sharp precision. His shots struck true, holding the soldiers back for a moment. The ship shook as more blasts hit its hull. Aaron knew they had only seconds. "Hold on," he said. He slammed the controls forward, and the craft lifted from the ground. Soldiers shouted as the engines roared, the force of the lift scattering crates and sending debris flying. The ship shot forward, smashing through a barrier gate and racing toward the launch tunnel. Red lights flashed all around as alarms screamed. Empire turrets along the walls activated, firing at the escaping vessel. Explosions lit the tunnel as blasts struck close, shaking the ship violently. Myra gripped the seat, her heart pounding. Aaron's hands were steady on the controls. He swerved the craft from side to side, dodging blasts with sharp movements. His focus never broke, even as fire rained down around them. Myra watched him in awe. His calm in the middle of chaos gave her courage. At last, the tunnel opened into the vast emptiness of space. Stars spread wide before them, and the dark curve of the transport ship loomed behind. Empire fighters launched from the vessel, chasing quickly after. "Strap in," Aaron said. He pushed the engines to full power. The ship surged forward, leaving trails of light in the darkness. The fighters closed in, their weapons glowing as they prepared to fire. Myra's fear threatened to overwhelm her, but she forced herself to stay calm. She remembered her people's songs, the words of strength. She whispered them under her breath, gripping the seat tighter. Aaron glanced at her briefly. Her quiet courage gave him strength as well. The first blasts from the fighters streaked past the ship, but Aaron twisted the controls, rolling the craft sharply. The shots missed, flying into the void. He returned fire with the small cannons of the stolen ship. Explosions lit the darkness as one fighter spun out of control. The chase burned across the stars. Aaron's hands moved with precision, his body leaning with the ship's motions. Myra could feel every turn, every burst of speed. She realized that this man, this human, was not only fighting for his own survival but for hers as well. Finally, the scanners showed a clear path. Aaron punched the coordinates into the system. The engines screamed as the ship jumped into faster-than-light travel, leaving the Empire fighters far behind. Silence filled the cabin except for the soft hum of the engines. Myra leaned back in her seat, her body shaking with relief. Aaron lowered his helmet, letting out a long breath. "We are free for now," he said. Myra turned her gaze toward him, her eyes filled with gratitude. "You risked everything for me." Aaron looked back at her, his voice steady but gentle. "No one deserves to live as a prisoner. As long as I can fight, I will never stand by and watch." In that moment, Myra realized that her rescue was not just escape. It was proof that there were people in the galaxy who would fight for others, even strangers. The flame of hope inside her heart burned brighter. Their escape was only the beginning. The stars stretched endlessly outside the small stolen craft, but peace did not last. Behind them, the Empire's transport ship released more fighters, sleek machines built for speed and destruction. Their engines glowed bright, cutting through the darkness as they closed the distance. Aaron sat at the controls, his eyes locked on the scanners. Red markers flashed across the screen, each one an enemy chasing them. He gripped the controls firmly, his voice calm but urgent. They are coming fast. This is not over. Myra sat beside him, strapped into the co-pilot seat. She could see the fighters through the small windows, dots of light growing larger as they approached. Her stomach tightened. She had thought freedom was only a step away, but now it seemed fragile. She looked at Aaron, seeing his focus and strength. That gave her courage. "What can I do to help?" she asked. Aaron glanced at her briefly. "Stay steady. If the systems overload, I will need you to follow my instructions." She nodded firmly. Her hands hovered near the console, ready to obey. The first wave of blasts came. Blue streaks of energy tore through space, passing close to their ship. The stolen craft shook violently as one blast grazed the side, sending sparks across the control board. Myra flinched, but Aaron's hands moved quickly, correcting the course. "Hold tight," he said. He rolled the craft sharply to the left, avoiding another stream of fire. The stars spun outside the window, making Myra dizzy, but Aaron's movements were controlled. He had flown through battles before. He knew how to dance with danger. The Empire fighters spread out, surrounding them in a wide arc. Aaron fired back with the ship's small cannons, the recoil rumbling through the cabin. One fighter exploded in a burst of light, but 3 more closed in. Myra's breath quickened. "There are too many." Aaron's voice was calm. "There are always too many. That is why we fight harder." The words struck her deeply. Even against impossible odds, he spoke with certainty. She held onto that strength. Suddenly, a warning light flashed on the console. Myra pointed quickly. "That system is overheating." Aaron glanced at it, then nodded. "Good eye. Press the release valve there." She followed his instruction, pressing a series of buttons. Steam vented from the side of the craft, cooling the engines. Aaron used the moment to push the ship into a sharp dive, cutting beneath the enemy formation. Blasts streaked above them, missing narrowly. The Empire fighters adjusted, chasing close behind. Their leader fired a missile, its bright trail rushing toward the small ship. Alarms screamed in the cabin. Myra's heart pounded. "Countermeasures," Aaron ordered. Myra scanned the console, found the correct switch, and slammed her hand down. Flares shot from the back of the craft, glowing brightly. The missile veered off course, exploding harmlessly in the distance. Myra gasped with relief, and Aaron gave a short nod. "You learn fast," he said. For a brief moment, Myra felt proud. She was not just a helpless prisoner anymore. She was part of this escape. The chase dragged on through the darkness. Each turn, each shot, was a battle in itself. Aaron's armor was scratched, his arms tense, but his focus never broke. Myra could see the strain in him, yet also the fire that pushed him forward. The Empire fighters grew more aggressive. They fired in coordinated patterns, boxing the small craft into narrow paths. Aaron gritted his teeth, weaving through them, but the ship shuddered with each near hit. One blast struck the left wing, sending warning lights across the console. "Damage to stabilizers," Myra read aloud, panic in her voice. Aaron's hands flew across the controls. "I can keep us steady. Just hold on." Another wave of blasts followed. Aaron rolled the ship again, pushing the engines to their limits. The roar filled the cabin, the vibrations shaking every panel. Myra gripped her seat tightly, her knuckles white. Through the chaos, Myra looked out the window. She saw the endless stars, so bright and free. She thought of her home, her people still under Empire control. If they could see her now, fleeing with the help of a human soldier, maybe they would believe freedom was still possible. The thought gave her strength. Eren fired again, striking another fighter. The explosion lit the void, but more enemies filled the space behind them. They will not stop, Eren muttered. They will chase us until one side falls. Myra whispered softly, then we must not fall. Eren looked at her through his visor. Her eyes, once filled with fear, now carried determination. He gave a sharp nod. Agreed. He adjusted the course toward a nearby asteroid field. The scanners showed dense clusters of rock, dangerous to navigate but perfect for shaking pursuers. We are going through, Eren said. Myra's eyes widened. Through that. It is our only chance. The ship dove toward the asteroid field. Massive rocks drifted silently, some as large as cities, others small and fast-moving. The Empire fighters followed without hesitation. Inside the field, the chase grew even more perilous. Eren twisted the craft sharply, weaving between spinning stones. Each turn risked collision, but each rock also blocked enemy fire. The Empire fighters struggled to match his skill. Two crashed against the asteroids, exploding in bright bursts. Myra clung to her seat, her breath shallow. The ship skimmed so close to the rocks that she could see the rough surface through the window. Dust and fragments scattered across the hull. Yet Eren's hands never wavered. Another fighter closed in from the right, firing rapidly. Eren spun the craft, hiding behind a massive boulder. The blast struck the rock instead. As the fighter came around the corner, Eren fired the cannons, shattering it into fragments. Myra let out a cry of joy. You did it? But Eren shook his head. Not yet. More are coming. The ship twisted deeper into the field. Behind them, the remaining fighters chased relentlessly. The stolen craft rattled with each maneuver, its systems strained to the edge. Myra's eyes darted across the console, watching for more warnings. At last, the scanners showed an opening at the far side of the field. Eren pushed the engines to full, the roar echoing in the cabin. The ship burst out of the asteroids, stars wide before them again. The remaining fighters followed, but they were fewer now, their formation broken. Eren set a course toward a distant signal, a human beacon hidden in deep space. Safety was still far, but it was within reach. Myra leaned back, her chest heaving. Her fear had not vanished, but it no longer ruled her. She looked at Eren, her voice soft but steady. You fight as if nothing can break you. Eren kept his eyes on the stars. Everything can break. But humans stand because we choose to. That is what makes us strong. Myra felt his words settle in her heart. She realized that the soldier was more than a rescuer. He was a symbol of resistance, proof that even against endless darkness, there could be light. The pursuit was not over, but hope was alive. The stolen ship sped through the blackness of space, but the relief was short. The Empire fighters that survived the asteroid chase were still behind them. Though their numbers had been reduced, they were still dangerous. The scanners showed them closing in again, refusing to give up the hunt. Eren's jaw tightened. His hands remained firm on the controls, guiding the damaged ship. The stabilizers groaned with each turn, and smoke drifted faintly from one of the rear panels. The craft would not last much longer in a straight chase. They are still coming, Myra said, her voice steady but worried. They will not stop until they have us, Eren replied. So we must make a stand. Myra looked at him with wide eyes. You mean fight them here? Aaron nodded. His gaze stayed forward, but his tone was calm. Sometimes the only way to escape is to face what follows. The words filled Myra with both fear and respect. She had seen Aaron fight before, in the corridors of the Empire ship and during the wild chase through the asteroids. He fought like a storm, unyielding and fierce. But now, against fighters in open space, the odds seemed worse than ever. The scanners beeped again. Ahead lay a small moon orbiting a gas giant. Its surface was rough, full of ridges and canyons. Aaron's eyes narrowed as he studied it. We can use that moon, he said. The terrain will give us cover. We will land, draw them in, and fight them on the ground. Myra's heart raced. That sounds even more dangerous. Aaron finally turned to look at her. His eyes, sharp and steady, met hers. Danger is what we face every moment. But if we stand together, we may survive. Myra swallowed hard, then nodded. I trust you. Aaron gave a small nod in return, then angled the ship toward the moon. The fighters behind noticed, firing streams of energy to stop them. Blasts struck near the hull, shaking the ship violently. Aaron gritted his teeth, forcing the craft down through the thin atmosphere. The landing was rough. The ship scraped across rocky ground before coming to a halt inside a deep canyon. Dust filled the air, and the hull groaned under the strain. Sparks leapt from damaged circuits. Myra coughed, unstrapping herself from the seat. Are we safe for now? Safe enough to fight, Aaron said. He stood quickly, grabbing his weapon and checking its charge. The soldier moved with precise confidence, even after everything they had endured. Through the broken window, Myra could see lights in the sky. The enemy fighters were circling, preparing to land nearby. The ground shook slightly as their engines roared. Aaron opened the storage hatch, pulling out extra power cells and a small shield generator. He handed the generator to Myra. Set this up near the entrance of the canyon. It will protect you from direct fire for a short time. Myra hesitated, her hands trembling as she took the device. And what about you? I will draw their fire, Aaron said simply. I will hold them long enough for you to stay alive. Myra's voice rose, fear mixed with anger. You cannot fight them all alone. Aaron placed a hand on her shoulder, steadying her. Listen to me. I am not alone. You are here. You can help, even if not with weapons. Trust yourself. His words gave her strength. She nodded and moved quickly to set up the shield generator, just as he instructed. The small device unfolded and emitted a faint shimmer, creating a protective barrier around the canyon entrance. Moments later, the enemy landed. The sleek fighters touched down on the rocky surface, and armored soldiers marched out. Their metallic boots clanged against the stone as they advanced in formation. Their eyes glowed faintly under their helmets, cold and merciless. Aaron stepped forward, his weapon raised. The human soldier stood tall in the dust and shadows, a lone figure facing an army. Myra watched him, her heart pounding. He looked unbreakable, like a wall against the storm. The first shots came. Blasts of energy streaked toward the canyon, slamming against the shield barrier. Sparks scattered across the rocks. Myra ducked behind the shield, clutching the console of the generator to keep it stable. Aaron moved like lightning. He fired back, his shots precise and devastating. One enemy soldier fell, then another. The Empire soldiers spread out, trying to surround him, but Aaron shifted positions with incredible speed. He used the canyon walls as cover, firing from angles that forced the enemy to hesitate. The battle raged fiercely. Each explosion echoed across the canyon walls. Myra's hands shook as she watched, but she forced herself to stay focused. She checked the shield generator constantly, adjusting the power to keep it from failing. Aaron fought without pause. His armor was scorched, his breathing heavy, but his spirit did not waver. Every time it seemed the enemy gained ground, he struck harder, forcing them back. Yet the numbers were great. More soldiers poured from the transports, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. Aaron's body tensed as he realized the shield would not hold forever. "Myra," he called out between bursts of fire. "You must be ready to move. If they break through, run deeper into the canyon. Do not stop." But Myra shook her head, shouting back, "I will not leave you." Aaron gave a short smile, even in the middle of battle. "Then help me hold." Her heart burned with determination. She looked around and spotted a pile of loose rocks on the canyon wall above the enemy's path. Quickly, she climbed a short distance and pushed hard against the stones. With a loud crash, they tumbled down, scattering the enemy soldiers and breaking their formation. Aaron seized the chance. He unleashed a powerful volley, striking down more soldiers before they could regroup. Myra scrambled back to the shield, her hands scraped but her spirit unbroken. The Empire soldiers roared in frustration, firing wildly at the canyon walls. The blasts tore chunks of stone, but Aaron and Myra used the chaos to their advantage. Minutes felt like hours. The canyon was filled with smoke, dust, and the sound of battle. Myra's ears rang, but her mind stayed sharp. Aaron fought with the strength of 10, each movement filled with purpose. She realized then that humans were different not only because of strength, but because of will. They refused to break, even when all odds stood against them. Finally, the enemy began to retreat. Their numbers had been cut, their morale shaken. The fighters lifted back into the sky, engines roaring as they pulled away. The remaining soldiers followed, leaving the canyon littered with scorch marks and shattered stone. Silence settled slowly. Myra lowered her trembling hands from the console. The shield flickered and shut down, its power drained. Aaron lowered his weapon, his chest rising and falling with deep breaths. His armor was battered, and his face showed exhaustion, but his eyes still burned with resolve. Myra ran to him, her heart pounding with relief. "You held them. You saved us." Aaron shook his head slightly. "We saved ourselves. You stood with me. You chose not to run. That is strength." Myra felt tears sting her eyes, but they were not from fear. They were from pride. For the first time, she believed fully that freedom was not just a dream. With allies like Aaron, it was possible. The canyon was quiet now, but both knew the fight was not over. More enemies would come. But they had survived the stand, and with survival came hope. Aaron looked toward the stars above. "This is only the beginning. But we will keep fighting. Together." Myra followed his gaze, her heart steady. Together. The canyon lay quiet after the storm of battle. Smoke drifted from scorched stone, and broken fragments of enemy machines lay scattered across the ground. The Empire forces had pulled back, but both Aaron and Myra knew it was only a pause. The Empire did not forgive failure, and it did not forget. Aaron stood at the edge of the canyon, his weapon still in hand. His armor was marked with burns and cracks, proof of the stand he had made. His breathing was steady now, his sharp eyes scanning the sky. He was not waiting for peace. He was waiting for the next challenge. Behind him, Myra worked on the shield generator, checking if it could be recharged. Her hands were scraped and her arms sore, but her spirit burned brighter than ever. She had felt fear, but she had also felt courage. In the middle of the stand, she had stopped seeing herself only as a prisoner. She had acted, fought, and made a difference. At last, she stepped closer to him. "They will return, won't they?" she asked softly. Aaron nodded. "The Empire does not give up. But we will not wait here for them. We must move before their next wave arrives." He turned toward their damaged ship. The hull was dented, the stabilizers groaning, but it still had power. Myra looked at it with doubt. "Can it still fly?" Aaron ran his hand across the side of the ship, testing the panels. "It will fly long enough. We only need to reach the human beacon I set as our course. Once there, we will find safety." Myra's chest eased slightly. Safety. The word sounded strange to her, almost unreal. Yet when Aaron spoke it, she believed. Together, they worked quickly. Aaron repaired what he could with spare parts, while Myra cleared debris from the landing gear. The silence between them was not heavy now. It was filled with understanding. Every glance, every short word spoken carried trust that had been forged in fire. When the ship was ready, they boarded once more. The engines groaned but came to life, lifting the craft from the canyon floor. As it rose, Myra looked down at the place where they had stood together, where they had turned fear into defiance. She would never forget it. The ship climbed into the stars, leaving the moon behind. But the scanners quickly confirmed what Aaron already expected. More enemy signals appeared on the edge of the system, closing fast. "They are coming again," Myra said, her voice tense. Aaron adjusted the controls calmly. "Let them come. We only need to last a little longer." The Empire fighters raced in, sleek and deadly. Their formation was tight, their weapons glowing. Aaron pushed the engines harder, guiding the ship toward the hidden beacon. The pursuit began once more, but this time Myra felt something different. She was not frozen in fear. She was ready. The fighters opened fire. Blasts tore across space, shaking the ship. Aaron wove through them, his hands steady. Myra watched the scanner, calling out directions. "Left, 2 more incoming. Right side clear. Enemy behind." Her voice became his second sight. Together, they moved as one. The ship shook again as a blast hit the rear wing. Warning lights flared, and the cabin filled with the smell of smoke. Myra coughed but did not panic. She followed Aaron's instructions quickly, rerouting power from secondary systems to the engines. The beacon signal grew stronger on the scanner. Aaron's voice sharpened. "Almost there." The Empire fighters pressed harder, sensing their quarry was slipping away. One broke formation and rushed ahead, firing directly at the cockpit. Aaron pulled the ship into a spin, the shot grazing past. Myra held onto her seat, her heart pounding, but her eyes stayed on the signal. Then it happened. Out of the darkness, bright shapes appeared. Human ships. Strong, angular vessels armed with heavy cannons. They moved like guardians, spreading into formation around Aaron's small ship. "This is Patrol Unit Iron Shield," a voice crackled through the comms. "Unknown vessel, identify yourself." Aaron leaned forward. "This is Sergeant Aaron of the Human Defense Forces. I am carrying a survivor rescued from Empire captivity. Requesting immediate support." The voice replied firmly. Request granted. You are under our protection now. Myra's breath caught in her throat. For the first time, she felt the weight of the Empire lifting from her shoulders. She looked at the human ships surrounding them, their presence powerful and steady. The Empire fighters tried one last attack, but the human patrol answered with overwhelming fire. Beams of light crossed the void, striking the enemy ships with deadly precision. One by one, the Empire fighters exploded, their wreckage scattering into the darkness. The survivors turned and fled, vanishing into the distant stars. Silence filled the cabin as the scanners cleared of enemy signals. Myra slumped back in her seat, her chest heaving with relief. Aaron finally allowed himself a slow breath, his grip on the controls easing. The patrol ships guided them toward a larger vessel waiting nearby. As they docked, Myra stared through the window at the massive human warship. Its hull gleamed under the distant light of the gas giant, a fortress in the void. Inside, medical teams rushed to greet them. They treated Aaron's wounds, offering him water and supplies. Myra stepped out slowly, her legs trembling. For so long she had known only cages and chains, but here she felt something new. She felt safe. Aaron walked beside her, though his body was weary. His voice was calm. You are free now, Myra. They cannot take that from you again. She turned to him, her eyes shining. I would not be free if not for you. Why did you risk so much for me? Aaron paused, then answered simply. Because no one deserves to live in chains. Humans know what it means to fight for freedom. And when we see someone in need, we act. His words were plain, but they struck deep in Myra's heart. She had seen his courage, his strength, and his compassion. He was more than a soldier. He was proof that humans carried something powerful within them, something the Empire could never understand. Tears filled her eyes, but they were not tears of sorrow. They were tears of hope. She nodded slowly. Then I will not waste this freedom. I will live, I will rebuild, and I will remember what you did. Aaron gave a small nod. That is all I ask. The two of them stood together on the deck of the human ship, watching the stars beyond the viewport. For Myra, the endless black no longer felt like a prison. It felt like a path waiting to be walked. For Aaron, the mission was far from over. There would be more battles, more lives to protect. But in this moment, he knew he had done something greater than duty. He had given someone a chance to begin again. The stars stretched wide before them, and for the first time in her life, Myra felt their light not as cold, but as warm. She whispered softly, her voice steady. Together. Aaron turned his gaze toward her, his expression firm but kind. Together. And with that word, they stepped forward into a future that was no longer bound by fear, but built on freedom and trust.